What's happening? What's happening, everyone? This is your man, Stefan NIC from the Urban Collective alongside.
What's up, everybody? It's your first lady, Miss Bernadine Truth. So excited to be here. Welcome back to the Urban Collective Show, another segment where we get to talk to somebody who is influential in the city of Boston, catch up with one another, and continue to impact the culture and just be here as a team. So excited to join in on conversation a little bit and check in with you. And I see, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Tired of all the snow, but I'm doing good.
No, I'm like, we went from one snow day that one time at band camp to snowing like every other day, and then they talk about snowing all next week. I'm just saying,
Yeah, it's been a pain. I mean, it's not a lot of snow, so you can shovel it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I shoveled the other day. I'm shoveling again today. I'm shoveling again in the next couple of days.
It's light snow. It's light snow. It's like fluffy, but
so it's not as bad. So I'm just like, so I'm enjoying it. I brought my son out in the snow.
How did you do?
Like, you're going in the snow. He was like, so that was pretty cool. So
wait, so what did you put him in it?
I just took him outside. It was snowing the other day, over the weekend. So I just took him outside, brought him outside. My mother was like, "Oh, make sure you dress him up." I was like, "He's fine." Put him in a hoodie and everything. Brought him outside, so he's just like looking at the snow, like, "What is this?" And it's like touching.
Right. So like, this new world of life.
Exactly. So it was nice. So we'll see.
Not that I compare. I say for me, not that I compare a human being to a dog, because I don't. But Bentley goes out in the snow and he loves it. Like it. I get so much joy from him, but then I'm also like, you can't come in my house with these wet paws. But he's like jumping, skipping. He looks like a little kangaroo hopping around and everything, just like taking it all in. He really loves it. And then I'm so sad, but I feel like I'm gonna lose him in it because he looks the same. They're like
dogs love snow, man. They love the snow. So
I didn't realize why.
I don't know. You got to think. I mean, they part wolf and they're used to the cold weather, and then their body's really made for it. So they love the snow. Snow and water, two things. Like bring them to a lake or something like that. You'll see.
He went crazy. I'm just like, okay, calm down, Bentley. I get it. Like, it's a snow day. Thank you. But it was funny, too, because I was thinking, I mean, of course, I love all the things that I'm able to do with life and time. But I feel like there's no point of having snow if there's no snow days. Like, I just, and then we don't really have snow days because we all work from home.
I was saying the same thing.
I'm like, we could have did without snow this year.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Or at least they should just be like, okay, you know what? It's snowing. You're not going to want to work. Take the day.
Yeah, like just exactly like a bad snow day. Like when we closed everything down like last week, I'm like, that would have been a snow day had we had to go to work. But they're like, y'all work from home, so who cares? But I'm like, no. For morale, please still give us snow days.
I know. I wish.
Well, I supposed to go outside.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of it. That's all it is. They're taking advantage of you working from home. There's a lot of things that they're like, you know what? Nah, you're still working. We don't care. So.
But give me my snow days, okay? That's what I asked for. But collective, a lot has happened since the last time we were on air. So just a couple. We always like to just highlight bits and pieces as we come and go. One of the elements I think we should highlight is the Super Bowl, particularly with Tom Brady, letting everybody know he's the GOAT and don't ever question him or challenge that again. Period.
See, I'm one of the rare people. It's like, I'm happy he got the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as like ecstatic about it. Like everybody was like, they were rooting for him. Like, oh my God, I want Tom Brady to win. Get the 7th ring. I'm like, if he wins, great. But he left the Patriots for me. I'm a Patriots fan. So I
get that, but he left the Patriots off of morale. You get what I'm saying?
I understand that. That's why I'm not hating. Like, oh my God.
On the fact he left. Period.
Yeah, I'm still like, damn. I wish he was still here. As a New Englander, as a person that grew up in Boston, I still wish like he did this. Like like Jordan did it his whole career, won all the championships, even though he went to other team later on in life and everything. You understand the business behind it. So it's the business aspect, So I was like, it was a soft, yay.
I mean, I get it because you're a diehard Patriots fan, but I'll be honest. So I had a moment where I'm just like, ugh, And if I didn't watch the Super Bowl, I had nothing to do. I was like doing my work, but I have mixed feelings about the NFL in general, right? And I think I've said this before, where it's just like modern day slavery and the ways that we like use our Black and brown folk for money. The industry itself, I don't necessarily think is always like the most ethically sound organization. A lot of conservatives and folks who don't really mess with people of color, even though people of color make them a lot of money. So whatever, I have issues. I have my own challenges, right? So that aside, I think for Brady, who also had an interesting relationship with Trump, which whatever, so whatever. But for Brady, I felt like off of morale again, right, and off of principle, what he was trying to say, where he was like, Bill Belichick, like, listen, put some respect on my name. You're not going to do that, so I'm going to put the respect that I'm asking you to put on my name myself, and to be able to go on another team and not only do well, but make that team go to the Super Bowl. Like, where were the Patriots? They didn't make it to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And then to have this game happen with the score of 31-9, I was just like, one, I think that was a boring game to watch. I don't really know. Like I said, I didn't watch it. But when I heard a score like that, I said,
it was one-sided.
It's not a great game to watch.
Yeah, and you want the Super Bowl. And the teams like Kansas City did not show up at all. I'm
just like, what? Like, they choked. They were nervous because weren't they supposed to be one of the best? They had some of the best players in the league too.
Yeah, they won last year. So they're a good team. They won the Super Bowl last year. So
were they intimidated by Brady?
No. Yeah, I really don't know.
I'm really trying to understand, like, what happened. Like,
I know they had some of their players could not play because of COVID. So there was that. Like, I think two of their starters, which is like your offensive line, and those guys are the ones that really protects the quarterback. Their quarterback, he was running all over the place. Like, they were chasing him the whole game. Like, literally every other play he was running because they were getting to him. So if you don't give the quarterback time to be able to find people and throw the ball, you're not going anywhere. And that's what football, it's the ultimate team sport. Everybody has to do their part, and they got crushed.
Everyone has a role. I know, because I'm like, they only got their points out of field goals. So I was just like, ooh.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even get a touchdown.
I kept hoping, so I'm like, they're going to come back. Huh?
Like, not a single touchdown in 4 quarters.
Exactly. And that team was one of the highest scoring teams in the regular season.
It makes me wonder, the conspiracy theorist in me. I'm just like, was this rigged? Like, was this like a perfect, was this like some behind the scenes?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you would have to convince 53 people to say, yeah, you know what, we're going to let this man win. I can understand like a one-on-one game. We could be like, okay, whatever. Boxing, is one person. There's a whole team, like 53 people. And
I just feel like that's just I just feel like for the stats that they had for Kansas City stats last year, to know what happened this year, and to know that like Brady's new to the team. Of course, he's not new to the sport, but new to the team. He's playing with new players. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like, to have that score happen, I just feel like such a wide margin. Like, I didn't watch it. I don't know the game that much, but
no, trust me,
it surprised me. I was just kind of like, that doesn't like seem.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Everybody's like, what
happened, right?
What happened? Like, everybody was expecting it to be a high scoring game.
Yeah, or like super head to head.
Exactly. So I don't know, but really, you got 7. Congrats, bro. That's to you.
That's it.
That's all you can say.
Super Bowl, the Super Bowl, what is it? The halftime show I heard was a little lackluster. Still off for the Black Girl Magic, but I heard it wasn't interesting.
Yeah, The Weeknd, I don't know what he was doing. I like The Weeknd, but The Weeknd is not really a big live performer. His music, the music. Have you listened to any of his albums? He's rapping
not necessarily an album, but I've listened to his music.
Okay, he's rapping about sex and drugs and stuff like that. So it's not. He kind of the songs, but it's not any like something that makes you want to dance. I think like 1 or 2 of his songs make you want to dance. Everything else is like you want to listen into it.
Yeah.
Concert venues and places like that. I know Celeste. I'm not sleeping on Brady.
Don't sleep.
Yeah, it was okay. It was
on Brady.
A halftime show.
But yeah, so I would say that happened. But I think but as you were saying, right, for Kansas City, like a number of their players were sick due to COVID or couldn't play because of COVID. I think that's the perfect segue into highlighting some of our local news, because we had some updates for COVID, particularly in the city of Boston. We've had like a shutdown that took place. We've had to keep numbers at like 20% capacity for every location. And then recently on the 6th, it was announced that capacity has been able to increase to 40.
Mm-hmm.
which I think is pretty awesome. People can go to the gyms have also opened. So I know that's a saving grace for so many people for like physical workouts. Anything else for you? And I see as far as like some of these updates going on in the world for
Yes, of
COVID.
course. Right now the Senate is trialing Mr. Donald Trump, or 45 is what I will refer to him as. So do you think, my question to you is, do you think they're actually going to find him guilty? Like, I watched one of the videos that they opened up the trial and the debate with today, and it was a very powerful video, just showing kind of the background scenes and certain cell phone videos that you didn't get to see. They were able to display about how he incited the crowd, how he's the one that really pushed that crowd to go to the house, because they were just there to go, let's go to a rally, do the rally, keep it moving. He's like, no, let's go. We're gonna go to their front steps. I'm gonna be there with you. So it really kind of opened up people's eyes, and if they do a good job, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to evict them to do it. But you know how these party lines are. But that trial started today, so
I saw that the trial started today. I haven't been able to watch any of the footage as of yet, but it's definitely on my agenda. It's going to be, like you said, his second impeachment. So he's been around. He's been here before, unfortunately. I think that I have mixed feelings. I think on the one hand, I think that they have reason to find him guilty, right? Because again, it's not just the footage; it's also how he led as a president. The things he said on social media, the commentary he would make when interviewed, like there's a lot of documents and content that's like easily accessible to people to find, right? When it comes to the way he's communicated and treated historically marginalized people, LGBTQ people, folks in various socioeconomic brackets, right? Like, so he's just, the bigotry is real, the hate is real, and so it's there. But I'm a little hesitant because we still do live in a world that is racist and that is like founded on that level of racism and thrives off of that. And so I guess, unfortunately, wouldn't surprise me if he was in a position where even with all of this information easily accessible to folks, they would not impeach him, right? And be like, almost like, well, he was impeached one time before. We're in a new president. We have a new president now, a new VP now. Like, just leave what happened behind us, which to me would be very disheartening because we're almost putting Band-Aids on things that deserve stitches, and we're giving racism a pass and bigotry a pass if we were to do that. But again, I think that our world has demonstrated a lot of moments where we can disappoint humanity. And I just hope that this is not one of them, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were, if that makes sense.
oh no, it wouldn't. It would not at all. So I guess what the next 2 weeks is gonna take. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. So I don't know.
We'll see. And so, I mean, I think that that's like perfect information when it comes to like local news and pop culture, right? Because everyone's sitting here like, what's going on with him? Like, what are we going to do? What does that mean for us? I think that the other part of this question to me is, or the main question for me is, what does it mean to us and what does it mean for humanity if he is not impeached? Right. And like, what messages are we looking to share with the world and what messages are we affirming?
My only reason I want him to, because he loses the rights and the privilege that he receives as an ex-president. He is impeached, so he won't be able to run again in 2024. Not only that, so retirement, all of the funds that he gets, he won't get that. He won't get hearings. He won't get all of that ex-presidents receive. So that's one of the reasons that people are like, oh, why we're still trying to do. There's still a lot of benefits that he receives as an ex-president. So we need to make sure we remove those rights from him, especially access to. So I don't want him to have access to those.
But some of what you outlined, I feel like his attorney is going to do a great job. Has to do a great job to paint him in a way where, yes, what he did was terrible, but it's not terrible enough to take these things from him, right? And so I'm like, but what I need people to understand is it's not taking something away from Trump. It's what is he taking away from? Like, what is the disregard of this going to take away from humanity and justice and equity and equality? You get what I'm saying? And I'm like, in the fight that we're all working on, and what I would hope human beings are working on to really change our world to be a more in tune, sustainably justice, like savvy, creative, inclusive, diplomatic world for all people. Like all of the positive elements of that. In order for us to do that, we need to show people like we are going to hold bigots accountable. Like that needs to happen. But
Mhm.
again, if we decide that all that he would lose is too grand for one person to lose, given the state of this world, like how dare we? It makes me nervous to again like think about what that says for the rest of the world.
Yeah. So we have to wait and see.
Yeah,
Hopefully they do their job, but we
exactly. Quickly before I forget, though, on a light-ish, and I say light-ish because the movie was kind of crazy, y'all. On a light-ish note for pop culture, I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight the fact that a movie called Malcolm and Mary, featuring Zendaya and John David Washington, was released on Netflix, and it follows these two individuals and their relationship. It's a black and white film that takes place in their home or a home that they are staying in, following in a premiere of sorts, a movie premiere. That's all I will say to folks. I don't want to give the movie away at
Yeah, I've
all.
been hearing a lot about it.
But stay tuned because I'm like next episode we'll probably debrief it a little bit where I want the rest of the world to kind of like share what their thoughts are
Okay.
with this particular movie. But it was interesting, and I'll say that.
All right. We'll leave it at that. And that was the week that was. Of course, we have to have a guest, and tonight we have a returning guest.
Woo, woo.
Let me add her to the stream. Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Michelle.
Oops, sorry, I'm always muted. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you
How
all.
are you doing this evening?
I am joyful being in this Zoom. It's been a long day. So I'm excited to just get to see you both. And this is the fun conversation I've been looking forward to.
All day. Well, we love having you on our show. It's always a great pleasure. Before we continue on, I just want to share your quick bio with the world. We'll share a brief one with folks. For those of you who do not know, City Councilor Michelle Wu is a mom, a daughter of immigrants, and a fierce believer that we can solve our deepest challenges through building community. As a Boston City Councilor, Michelle has worked in coalition to deliver bold, systemic change and redefine what is possible through activist city leadership across our neighborhoods. Michelle is also one of the leading women with the bid for Boston's mayor coming up in our near election. So I'm so excited to have you on our show always as a person, as somebody I respect, as somebody as that I admire, but also again as a leader for our city. So without further ado, Michelle, say hello to the people.
Well, it's so, again, just centering and exciting to be back with you both. Thank you so much for holding this space for community. I think I got to, from the sort of waiting room or whatever you call it. I was getting to listen in a little bit on your conversation, and it's heavy right now. And we are where we are in this country because it can be sometimes so hard to just connect with people again, right? It's not just the pandemic, it's Facebook and social media and everybody working such long hours. And so I'm excited about this year for the city of Boston. I am running for mayor to bring bold, urgent leadership in making Boston a city for everyone. And the energy is here. We have what we need to do it. So this moment is really about busting down the door so that everybody is part of shaping our future.
Talk about it. Thank you. I love that. I'm like, everybody's part of it. Okay, we got to bust down doors. It's time for us to be radical revolutionaries. This is no longer the time for us to stay sleeping and keep racist systems in place. Like, we really have to change that. We really have to show up for ourselves and really show up for our people. But I get excited talking about politics, especially for the city of Boston. But NIC, go ahead. You can take it away with your next question.
Yes, of course. We all know you, Bernadine. So, Michelle, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, I know you have the bid out there. You want to become mayor. So my question for you is, what are your goals for the city that you have that the people should be saying, okay, I understand, I like these, and I should vote and want to vote for you?
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about me for folks just to understand why I even got to this place in the work, I think to know me is to start with the fact that I'm a mom, right? I wake up every day. I have 2 kids. My boys are 3 and 6, and they remind me of why we are living in an urgent time, right? My older son was born in my first year on the council, and now he is in kindergarten, right, in the middle of this pandemic. And so 2 mayoral terms later, he's gone from opening his eyes to the world to being in Boston Public Schools in kindergarten. 2 more mayoral terms, he's going to be in high school, right? And so that's how fast our cities has to keep up. Our policies have to be changing. The other thing to know about me is that I'm the daughter of immigrants, and my parents came to this country with nothing. So I think my whole life I've had a sense of what it means to have to deal with barriers that sometimes you can't even see. Language, race, culture. My mom has been living with mental illness for about a dozen years now. I raised my sisters during that time period. And so we have lived intensely what it means when government works, but also when it doesn't work. So my vision for the city is that we don't need a savior for Boston, right? We need to move away from this idea that one person with the exact right background or qualifications or this or that is going to come in and make the decisions, and then we'll have change. This is truly about how do we get to a place where we are tapping into the energy, the activism, the readiness of every community to be part of shaping our future. For me, that future includes schools, health, and wealth, right? How do we create opportunity for our young people? How do we make sure that in this mecca of the best hospitals in the world, our people, our residents are actually connected? We're closing some of the deepest disparities that we see in Boston. And then wealth, how do we make sure that we are actually lifting up our potential, our entrepreneurship, and passing on that generational wealth that has been created through policies and that we're taking the steps to remedy, right? A disparity study just came out for the city of Boston showing that over the last 7-8 years, 1.2% of the city's spending on from city government went to Black and Latinx owned businesses, right? 1.2% in a city as diverse as Boston. That is unacceptable. Other major cities are doing 20%, 30%, 40%. And it's not just that, we didn't hit a number. This is about, we're missing out on the chance to build wealth and create jobs and see our neighborhoods and our kids flourish because we are investing in ourselves. Right now, we're missing out on that opportunity. And I think so much of what we need to do is create a connected city, plug everyone in, and break down these silos that we're often operating in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michelle. You touched on a number of things. And again, your 3 pillars right now are education, health, and wealth. And I appreciated what you just said as far as, some of the information that was shared, that Beckman put out there too, talking about our economic disparities that really, again, are very prevalent and present in the city of Boston. And while we're missing out, I also wonder, are we being left out, right? And are we being taken out, or are we being kicked out? And oftentimes we talk about requiring a seat at the table, and if there isn't one, we create one. But I think what we're also seeing is that people are intentionally, or systems are intentionally keeping people out of the rooms and out of these places. But I see that engagement is also something that is very important to you. So not only are you actively on podcasts and are getting to know people in the city of Boston in ways to connect with folks, but you're also creating your own town hall conversations, right? And spaces to host these dialogues, if you will, to really help to encourage and to inspire people. And most recently, you hosted one, I believe yesterday, on education. So can you talk to us a little bit more about how that level of engagement came to be, and what are you looking to have happen through these town halls and through these dialogues, and even in creating spaces to invite folks in the city of Boston to engage in these conversations with you?
Yeah, I started with the fact that I never saw myself running for office growing up, given my family, immigrant family, and all that. A lot of it was I was never in spaces with people who were, quote unquote, in power. I never saw someone who looked like me on TV. I didn't get to meet an elected official. And so we need to get away from this idea that government and decisions happen at these closed door meetings, at the tables of power. We need to get City Hall out of City Hall, right, and into the community. And so in some ways, the pandemic has forced this to happen, right? City Hall shut down. our buildings, our schools have been closed. And we never imagined a world in which when you're running for mayor, you can't go talk to people, meet people, run into people anymore. What this makes apparent is that we could have been doing some of this all along, right? We could have been making it possible for people to participate and share their views and have an impact on policy without, dragging themselves to City Hall in the middle of the day, taking time off work. And so that part needs to continue. But another plan that we just put out is about digital equity. The fact that 15% of our residents in Boston don't have home internet, and 8% of residents only are accessing Wi-Fi through a smartphone data plan, right? And we have monthly limits. You got to stay under that. And in some neighborhoods, that's as high as 30%. So if we're talking about accessibility and reaching people and meeting people where they're at, this is an important part of it. It's critical infrastructure, but we have to make sure that everyone has that internet, that everyone has this hardware and technology, everyone has the skills and training to be able to benefit from the remote learning, the mental health and telehealth that's happening in all these public processes.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you shedding light on that, because I think we take for granted the fact that, we assume everyone has internet access. We assume everyone has a laptop. We assume that now that we've pivoted to this world of virtual learning and virtual ways of operation, that everyone has access. And Boston Public Schools had to intentionally deliver like iPads and learning tools to families to make sure that people were learning, right? And there's still certain challenges that are posed with that. But like, what if you're not a student in BPS or a family member, but you still need to have access to support, to telehealth, to just, again, be a better functioning human being during this trying time? So thank you so much for, again, creating those spaces. And for last night's conversation, what I wanted to highlight was that you had a youth voice there, right? And so you're talking about education, but you're also bringing in the voices from the community to shed light, because oftentimes too, we always want to work on behalf of creating better systems for folks, but we don't often include the people we are impacting in on the work and in on the conversations. Or if we do, their words they fall on deaf ears almost, where they don't necessarily go into action. And so I believe that you will allow all of these conversations to not only just stay in that world, this digital platform and these digital spaces, but really be implemented in systemic changes in City Hall. So I thank you for that. And I see.
Yes. So, Michelle, I wanted to go back to that disparity report that came out. One of the lines that I read from there that really shocked me, it stated of the 47,000 contracts awarded by the city of Boston over a 5-year period, only 0.4% of those contracts reach Black businesses. So the Urban Collective, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, we work with a lot of business owners and interview them. This is what our platform is about. So how would you address this issue, not just in the construction field, but for all future entrepreneurs in the Black and Brown community, to make sure that they get their fair rights?
Yeah, and again, just to be clear, this is, of course, a matter of fairness. This is a matter of equity, but it is a matter of stepping into what is best in terms of an investment across the city's economy for everyone, too, right? We are losing out right now on the talent, the contributions, the potential of our homegrown businesses to really be creating jobs and growing and expanding and everything that means for Boston. So there's actually a lot, in the 700 pages of that report, there's a whole section on what to do about it. And we've been lifting up and calling for these actions and echoing community members' advocacy for years at this point. In 2017, I was proud to co-author a piece of legislation with then Councilor Ayanna Pressley, which we passed for equity in city contracting that required for the first time reporting on these numbers. That's when we learned the first report came out. It was less than 1% in 2018, went to MWBE's total, right? The whole thing. And then since then have been partnering with Council President Kim Janey to keep up the accountability on that. We know there are a lot of things that could happen today, right? A lot of it is about information and empowering our businesses to be ready to make these bids. We know, you can go on the website at the city today, check out all the contracts you can apply for today on Tuesday, but many of these are multi-year, 3-year contracts that come up over, not this year, but 2 years later or 3 years later. And you can't be sitting online every single day checking to see what's new all of a sudden. We need to have a calendar out there, a clear buying plan that lets businesses ramp up to be ready. We also should be breaking down the contract sizes. So instead of doing over all of the windows in Boston Public Schools all at one time, which means you have to be a pretty big company already to bid on that. You probably have a pretty serious bidding history. Let's make this a platform and a step for our folks to grow their businesses to begin with, right? Break that down into a bunch of regional contracts for different neighborhoods so that people can get a foot in the door, grow their businesses. That benefit comes right back to the city of Boston.
Who do you think those conversations need to? Who do you think needs to be part of those conversations, Bill? So I love that idea, right? Creating the pipeline and a system to have, particularly like a lot of smaller businesses have a chance. And even as you talked about the digital disparities that are taking place in digital equity, right? So like even if we have these opportunities posted online, like we're also assuming everyone has access to even know what link to select and when to select the link and to read it and to have, like just again, just the accessibility element of it, I think is what stands out to me a lot. So like, who are you having those types of conversations with to really allow small businesses to have a fair chance at even being considered?
Yeah, I mean, BECMA's been doing amazing work and just shouldering so much of this load over the last couple of years to keep the ball moving on it. But the problem is that on the city side, everything is broken up into different silos, and there's not really one place that's been dedicated to focusing and prioritizing this, right? Yeah. So I, as mayor, I would create a chief procurement officer, one point of contact, one person who's full-time thinking about how we fix this problem, how we get to the investments that will come back in returns for the city. Because right now, a lot of the departments are doing their own buying and contracting at every single departmental level, right? So we need to get everyone coordinated, have one point of contact that is also then invested with not only a person with a title, but the funding and the budget to be able to invest in doing that outreach to the community, getting our businesses in the door. You know, we often hear these excuses, oh, we want to contract with Black-owned businesses or businesses owned by people of color, but you know, the capacity is not there in the community. We can't find these businesses. Well, this disparity study eliminates that as an excuse, right? Yep. If we were to do nothing at all, if we were not even to try, there's 16.9%, 17% of businesses Black businesses owned by people of color in Boston. That should be our basic floor. And again, we should be reaching for 30%, 40% as other cities are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight too, particularly again, focusing back on Boston. And I love your initiative to break the silos to really engage in these conversations, but also in practice, right? Because again, it's one thing to talk about them and it's something totally different to implement structures and put somebody in a position where that's their sole responsibility. I want to pick your brain a little bit more as you're talking about the I would say racial divide in access and opportunity for small businesses, but I would say it stems further than that, right? Like we see the racial divide take place in the city of Boston in our history with education, right? We had busing take place here. That was a challenge. We're seeing the disparities that are taking place with COVID, where some groups or a large portion of people of color don't really trust our healthcare system, but a lot of people are still getting vaccinated, and we're recognizing that a lot of those who are getting vaccinated are white folks. So, like, how are we going to bring more people of color into those conversations? When we talk about mental health, as you have your own experiences there, right? The impact of mental health, I would say, has widened during this time too, as people are struggling to either get treatment or really just be around social people, like socializing and being in community, etc. So this is my long-winded way to ask you, really, like, what are your plans to really bring our racial groups together in the city of Boston? So I understand again that your focus is on education, it's on health, and it's on wealth, but there is this strong racial divide, I believe, that is still deeply rooted in the city of Boston. So how are we going to bring the immigrant perspective and the white perspective and the Black perspective and the Caribbean perspective and the Asian perspective and the Latinx perspective all at the forefront of what we do? So it's not just the city of Boston where we will have our first women of color as mayor and our first Asian woman, as mayor, however it may be, but like it's truly one that is inclusive and supportive of all that is Boston and not just some over others.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, another way I think of putting it is that justice has to be intersectional. We know that in the city, we are one of the most segregated places in the country in terms of outcomes on all those categories you talked about. But we have the numbers, right? Boston is a majority people of color. Boston is a majority, there are over 110 different countries of origin represented in our Boston public schools, 75 plus languages spoken at home by our students and their families. And so this is really about a year and a conversation for the city to recognize what we could be the city we dream of when we put together this connected, multicultural, multilingual, multi-generational coalition to get things done. And that's really how we're trying to run our campaign is, we got in this early in September, which is earlier than most city elections and most mayoral races usually kick off, right? Well over a year until the election. And it's because we needed the time to have these conversations, to get into all the details about policies and how all these challenges fit together. But more importantly, to build the community, to help be part of civic engagement, because what matters is not really who wins the election, right? It is whether we will have a connected community, an infrastructure, a movement ready to make change on day one after the election.
Right.
Okay. So we did have one question from the audience that I wanted to ask you. The question is basically asking, what are your thoughts and what do you feel about the governor sending the climate bill back to the state house again?
I know that politics is, my parents never wanted me to be doing this because sometimes you get in situations where common sense doesn't line up with public service, doesn't line up with the decisions that you see happening behind closed doors. What I'll say about this situation is that we never should have been here with the bill vetoed in the first place. Right? This was the result of so many activists, environmental justice leaders, residents, organizations, community coming together to demand relief. I mean, this bill wasn't even anything that was, getting to where we need to go all the way. This was just a step, a starting point in actually codifying environmental justice into our laws and recognizing the disproportionate impact on Black and Latinx and immigrant communities and those who have borne the brunt of this pandemic. And so this was a no-brainer, right? That it even had to take this long, that it's now in multiple iterations is extremely frustrating. It also shows just how much we can't do it all at one level of government, that our organizing at the city level, at the grassroots level, has to feed right into what's going to happen at the state level and beyond too, right? We're in a little bit of relief now when it comes to our president and vice president and the federal government, but we need that line all the way up and down to be aligned for the people, and we're not there yet in Massachusetts.
Not there yet. Yeah. You're still right about that. And then our next topic that I wanted to ask you about is you came out on social media and you said that you want to have a vaccination site in every Boston zip code. So what would that plan look like, especially, the rollout of these vaccinations has not gone according to plan? And how would that look like, and what would be the timetable for Boston?
Yeah, so the ordinance that we put forward has a couple pieces to it, and it's basically about how we need to make sure this is the single most urgent thing we could be doing to end the pandemic, and we need to make it totally possible on the government side for there to be no barriers for people, right? There's a lot of work to do. I know, Bernadine, we were just talking about the history of medical disenfranchisement, the very legitimate reasons why Black and Brown communities don't trust our healthcare system and our government when it comes to this, right? I grew up in a family that was extremely skeptical and suspicious of healthcare and formalized, injections and all of that, right? This is why my mom is still living with mental health challenges, and it is, from a caregiving perspective, a struggle for everyone day to day sometimes. But we can't have, when people get to the point of feeling comfortable and ready to go, then all of a sudden there's nowhere to go. You can't sign up. You can't get there. And this and that. So all those pieces have to be put in place now, right?
Mhm.
They have to be happening at the same time. And, I don't think we could have predicted what we've been reading about, that it's not enough just to decide to plop a site in Roxbury if you still have to first come, first serve, sign up on the internet. And again, who has internet? Who has the time to be waiting and clicking to snag those spots? We should have had a registration system that allowed people to sign up over time, to then prioritize based on zip codes and race and ethnicity and medical conditions and other factors. But we need to make sure that there are no barriers for where people go to get this, what time of day it's available, that we have early morning, evening, weekends, and that there's a way for people to get this information. I actually think we even need to be moving to the place where we are taking it to people at their homes.
Yeah.
Right? Think about all the seniors now who've
Yeah.
been isolating, trying to, in the ice and snow, get out to these vaccination sites when we
Mhm.
have EMS, we have public safety and first responders who, or other infrastructure where we should be able to make it easier for people and meet them where they're at too.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I think part of what you also mentioned really makes me think, like, again, are the vulnerable populations truly a priority in all of this, right? Because what you're saying, like, bring it to people. I think we live in a world where if you want it, you need to go get it. But if you want it, it also needs to be able to come to you, because again, the elderly population is very fragile. People who are, newborn babies or new parents, right? Like, may not easily want to be able to go out right now because they have like this new child to take care of. People who have immune systems that are compromised, right? You don't want to wait in a line for a long time to get this vaccine so that you can be better, all the while you're exposing yourself while you're in the line, right? And so we need to have those conversations. And again, like you said, with folks who are struggling with mental health, who are not trusting of our system, I think that I would wait for I would love for Boston to put out a message to say, hey, we recognize people of color, we recognize that you all don't trust us. We recognize the history of why you all don't trust the healthcare system. And rather than just saying, like, listen, you need to do this, it's like, these are the steps we've taken to rebuild that level of trust. This is the steps that we've taken to make sure that when you hear something is going on in the world of healthcare, you're not thinking that there's a shot that's different for a person of color versus a white person, or that someone who has more the socioeconomic stability has, better chances of getting a shot that will actually support them versus somebody who doesn't, right? So, like, there are real stigmas and real challenges that exist in the city, and I would say across the country, and that we need to have these conversations, because again, we need to normalize the importance of believing in our government, but then that also means that our government needs to not disappoint, and our government needs to not discourage, and our government needs to not disregard our most vulnerable population either. So I thank you again for your efforts and your contributions in making sure that we all get the support that we in fact need. Michelle, my last question to you, in all of the work that you're looking to do and in knowing this race, like, what is a message you'd like our listeners to know about you, as far as like where your heart is in all of this? Because I think that part of what we're saying in Boston too is we don't just need another mayor. We need a mayor who's really about the people and for the people. So, like, what about Michelle can you share with us as far as like what can speak to our heartstrings, right? And really know that we can really trust in you to really change Boston, not even just in education, healthcare, and mental health, but also in gentrification in our cities and affordability of even being here. Right now, people of color are on a higher percentile, but we're being priced out, right? Or you're gonna rent forever, but you can never own in the city to really make your legacy known. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I am now. I've been at it for a relatively long time now, right? This is my 8th year, and I started when I was 28 and never thought that I would be here, right? There's still many spaces that I walk in where I kind of have to pinch myself because I wasn't supposed to be, right, in this position or in this space even. And that's what drives me every day, of remembering what it was like, knowing and feeling and smelling, and I could it's just like yesterday I could close my eyes and I'm in that emergency room staying up all night with my mom, right, waiting for the mental health bed to open up, or I'm in the school building just begging for supports for my sisters given everything that was happening at home, or I'm opening a small business and it's the one thing that could keep my family going and also help our community, and yet I'm having to fight city government to just get some attention to even give me a chance to do that. And so that's what I think about when I think about the role of what a city councilor or a mayor or an elected official should be. It is, we see really low turnout when it comes to these city races. Less than half, usually, of the people who come out to vote for governor or president will come out to vote for their mayor. And yet, this is the level of government that touches every part of your life, every day. The schools your kids go to, how clean and safe your streets are, whether it's easy to find your way to get to a job, and whether you can access, whether you can connect with the opportunities that you dream of for your kids. And what I want this race to be about is not just why city government matters to people, but redefining who matters to our government, right? Who is going to get to be part of that? Whose voices are going to shape these conversations? So above all, I am about being a platform and doing whatever I can with the influence or platform that I may have to be building community, to be creating the activism and the connections across all our communities in the city, so that we're all right there and we're drawing on every talent that Boston has, that right now, as you said, Bernadine, right, shut out, pushed out, we could be the city that we dream of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We can definitely be that city. And I've watched you do it. I guess I'm going to sneak in this other question, because I know you speak a lot about the Black and Brown folks, but like, what about the Asian community? Like, what, how are we bringing them into the conversation? How have you connected with them in this race? And how are you staying true to like your ethnic origin, your culture, while also creating pathways and pipelines for folks who don't necessarily look like you directly as far as being Black?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really, really tough time for the Asian American community during COVID, just because the whole thing kind of started in the United States Lunar New Year season a year ago, which was supposed to be the time where people come together, businesses are flourishing, and instead there was a spike in hate crimes to Asian Americans, given how our former occupant of the White House was talking about the virus and who caused it and this and that. And so in this moment, Chinatown, Little Saigon, many of our communities, our AAPI communities, are in a really fragile place when it comes to development and gentrification, and people are holding on to be able to stay in the city. So I think the experience of what does it mean to build bridges and connections and make sure we're all standing together in the city is something that I'm really excited about trying to give a platform to. The Asian American community is very diverse, right? It's all different languages, all different economic situations, all different backgrounds. And some of it is just being seen, right? A community that often feels so invisible and perpetually talked about as other, right? Even if you're in this country multiple generations, people always assume, right? The question is, where are you from? No, where are you really from, right? I still get that all the time. And I think that's our charge in the city, to make sure that every person is seen, is valued, is lifted up with the opportunities we have here.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that perspective, and also the insight again on the Asian American community, particularly understanding that during the Lunar New Year, you were all impacted by this as well. And so I think it's, again, reiterating the importance of making sure various ethnicities and cultural groups are truly part of these conversations, and in dismantling the silos in which Boston operates professionally. We also need to dismantle the silos that Boston operates under culturally, ethnically, religiously, right? I think paying homage and respect where needed, but also understanding that we need to radically break down barriers and stereotypes and stigmas in order to truly have everyone be at the table, to understand that when we're having a conversation that truly impacts the human race, that means that this is a conversation for all humans. So thank you so much. And I see.
Yes, and we have one other question coming from the audience. And in this question, they wanted to know, in the 8 years that you have been a city councilor, what have you done specifically to address the issues dealing with Black communities around Boston?
Yeah, I have been really just humbled to be part of a way within the city of Boston where we've transformed how we think about the city council and the potential for city government to make a difference. And so I've been proud of the legislation that I've led around equity in city contracting and making sure we are bringing that transparency and putting in place preferences for businesses owned by people of color, for our Black and brown businesses in Boston. I've been proud of my legislation around language access and communications access so everybody can benefit from city services, ensuring housing stability, in pushing back when there were companies coming in that were pushing out renters and putting short-term rentals in a de facto hotel situation that was really driving up rents in impacted communities. Our work on climate to ensure that we are centering the communities that have done the least to contribute to climate change, bearing the burden of this pandemic, environmental hazards, exposure to pollution, all the health risks that come with it. And so there's a lot that we've done on the policy side. That has been possible because of the teams that I put together of amazing staff and supporters and experts and volunteers who represent the diversity of our city. And so I've been proud to make sure that we are not only having our staff, speaking multiple languages, representing Boston's diversity, but also run a very large internship program usually to give young people a foot in the door, to have paid slots for young people of color to be part of government and politics. And most of all, whenever I have the chance to have a platform, I make sure that I am opening the door and supporting other people of color, women of color, who are stepping up as well, right? So to support candidates running for office, often millennials of color all across the state, to ensure that in my home ward committee, Ward 18, we put together a slate to access the level of the political committee structure closest to the people at the neighborhood and ward level, with a slate that was exactly matching the demographics of our ward, 2/3 people of color in Ward 18, which is Hyde Park, Rosendale, and Mattapan. And so when I have the chance, it's important for me to realize not just the difference that we should make in terms of policy and legislating and programmatic change, but who is part of the process and how do we keep elevating people of color, Black Bostonians, Latinx, immigrant residents of our city into positions of influence and leadership.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time, for your perspectives, for your expertise, and also for your commitment and interest in leading our city. I think being the mayor of Boston is no easy feat, no easy task for one to take on. Understanding the racial undertones that direct so much of what we do, but then also the resiliency that empowers so many people to continue to show up and to create, and entrepreneurs and business folks and corporations and education, you name it, we're all out here. So I thank you so much for doing your best to create a platform where all of us can truly be united, and we wish you the best in this local election. So can you let our listeners know, where can they follow you? How can they support you? How, what do you need during this time to really make sure you continue to have a successful run an election, and hopefully we are going to be voting you in for mayor in due time.
So thank you, everyone. Really excited that we're getting ready as a city to make some big changes. You can go to our website, michelleforboston.com, or follow me on social media at WooTrain. Get engaged now, right? Do your research, follow the campaigns, pick your candidate, and do it early, because we need to be building the infrastructure for civic engagement and participation to boost that voter turnout come September and November. Our entire city will win if we have the highest turnout we've ever seen, no matter who is elected mayor, because this will mean that we've all gotten connected to our government, connected to our communities. I am, of course, asking for folks' support and votes humbly along the way. But most important is to build that community so that we are ready to go and delivering change in office.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's always a pleasure to have you. We look forward to following through on this race for you, supporting as much as we possibly can. For those of you who don't again are not familiar with Michelle, she is a candidate who's running for office as our local city mayor for Boston. We believe in her and her opportunity and her perspective and her commitment to again providing a voice and a pipeline for generations to come across economic statuses, across culture, across ethnic origin, across education level, and across one's ability to navigate through the city of Boston itself with public transportation. And so, for those of you who don't know, like Michelle is really taking the time to identify the various elements of what supports different folks in the city of Boston to navigate life socially, personally, professionally, I'd say personally too, because again, like from knowing your story, Michelle, and the work that you do and your reasons why, I think your reasons why speaks volumes to a number of other people in the city of Boston's reasons why. And for millennials who are just tuning in and are not getting hip to Michelle, I've watched firsthand how Michelle is committed to the millennial population. And so if any of you are interested in the world of politics, again, really be committed and invested in your local communities. Even if you're from the outside Boston area, local politics truly does make a difference. It impacts who is shoveling your streets right now every time we have snow on the ground, believe it or not. And who is supporting of your schools and how are you going to be able to afford or not afford the home in which you live in. So again, these are like minor issues on a local level that truly hold a lot of weight to sustainability. So thank you again, Michelle, for your time. Thank you again for being part of this space. To the collective, thank you all for being here and for supporting our show. And for Michelle, we look forward to voting for you and really being more actively involved in politics and in this election come September, November's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye.
Okay,
Good to see you.
thank you.
Of course. Bye. Folks, again, it's always a great joy to have somebody on our show to just again share their own story and share how they're navigating through this political climate, but just again how important it is to really vote and really show up for whoever you truly believe in. I think Michelle said it best, right? Whoever the mayor is, it's about their contributions to creating a better and more inclusive and sustainable Boston, right? So when we bring folks on our show, it's not to say that the Urban Collective has a particular side which we lean on for politics. We truly believe in the importance of humanity and making sure that whoever we have, particularly in local politics, in office or is running for office, like we understand their views and we understand that they have a commitment to again all people within our city and within our population. And so it's always a great honor to have Michelle, but it's also always a great honor to hear from all of you amazing folks who are commenting, who are viewing, who are checking in with us, because again, we are the collective because of you all being part of our tribe. So thank you for holding us accountable. Thank you for holding your communities accountable. And thank you for holding your elected officials accountable. And I see any thoughts for you?
No. So one of the things with that is, I love having Michelle on, but there's a lot of other people that has made the announcement that they are running for mayor. So we have this platform, so we will try to get others that are running for the city of Boston to come on the Urban Collective to give their thoughts and what they have and the plans that they have for this city, because it is our city, and we want to make sure we hear from everyone. So there's going to be more coming, like she said. The election's still some time away, but we have plenty of time to make sure we can bring people on. So we'll make sure, as a show for the city and for the culture, we bring them on for everyone.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for tuning into the Urban Collective show. It's always a great honor to be able to create a platform for us to be able to engage in the weeks that were, what has impacted our city of Boston, but also maybe our country, depending on where we are with local news and politics and pop culture. But then again, highlighting folks in our community, in the greater Boston community, who are making a change and making a difference. And as NIC said, our goal is to also bring other candidates onto the show so that we can hear from a wide range of folks, right, and their commitment to the city of Boston and to creating a more equitable world for all of us, particularly, again, those in the greater Boston community. So, but again, the collective, we will not be able to do the work that we do without all of you. And so it's with the utmost level of gratitude that I express my thank yous to all of you for rocking out with us all the time, episode after episode. We are because you are. So NIC, where can they follow us? Oops, I'm supposed to let y'all know where y'all can follow us. I'm not always great at this. Follow us at the Urban Collective Show on Instagram. We are also on Twitter. I'm really bad at our Twitter, but just look us up, the Urban Collective Show. We're also the Urban Collective Show on Facebook. You can also email us at any point in time if you have any questions or if you have a guest that you feel like we need to be able to hear from at the Urban Collective Show at gmail.com. Again, we are a platform and a pathway for all of you to share your voices because, again, we are because you are. We do it for the city and the culture, but you are our city and you are our culture.
Yes, yes, y'all. You always know we like to end the show with a motivational quote. So this week, the quote goes like this. It is often easier to make progress on mega ambitious dreams. Since no one else is crazy enough to do it, you have little competition. By Larry Page. If you don't know who he is, look him up. So thank you once again. I appreciate everyone for joining us. I appreciate Michelle. We will catch you guys in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. It's your girl, Bernadine Truth.
I see.
We'll catch you soon. Later, Collective.